Welcome back to the Father's Advocate. I'm your host, Attorney Ella Hughes, the Bulldog attorney fighting for justice and the Father's Advocate. Today is our first installment of our new series called Dismantling the Myth of Black Fatherhood. I am joined today by four wonderful, beautiful Black fathers, and we're going to talk about the topic of Black fatherhood, what it means to each one of them, and how we can change the negative stereotype and help new fathers. Before we begin, I want to introduce each one of my guests, starting to my left.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Ajayi. I'm a board-certified psychiatrist, and I'm not yet a Black father, but I do spend a large part of my time counseling Black fathers into new fatherhood, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Before we continue, I want to also note that we are joined in this wonderful venue in Gozi Oasis. It is a wonderful outdoor. We're having a fall garden party. So it's here with family and friends, with lots of food and music, and then of course we're doing our podcast. Let's go to our second guest.
My name is Dwight Hudson, currently an assistant principal with over 20 years in education and father of 7 children.
Okay, our third guest.
I'm Reginald Lewis, father of 4, entrepreneur. Excited to be here.
Okay. And our last guest.
Hi, I'm Jameco Cobb Sr. I am a former truck driver, semi-retired, want to go back, definitely. But glad to be here, and I'm enjoying this beautiful outside setting.
Okay, and I want to also note that we have 2 friends of the show, and that would be Dr. Ajayi. You guys have seen him before on our podcast, and of course, Mr. Reggie, he's been here as well. So before we get started, I have a few questions. Can each one of you tell me, what do you think about fatherhood? What does it mean when you hear Black fatherhood? Either one of you can start. Okay, I picked someone. Okay, Mr. Reggie picked up the mic.
Well, fatherhood to me is probably one of the most proudest moments of my life. I was when my wife gave birth, I was there as she was giving birth, and when the doctor handed me my first son, that probably was the proudest moment, and it made me realize what fatherhood was about. All my priorities changed going forward from that moment on. So, you have to accept, now it's not about you anymore. You have to take responsibility and learn what, taking care of, mentoring, making sure they're secure and they have the things they need, and you have to put them above your needs. And that's what I learned early on about fatherhood.
And I would say a lot of the same things that he said, but it was also a very big shift in responsibility, because my first child, I had her at 20. And, I was a wild guy in college. A lot of people wouldn't believe it if they knew me now. Wild guy, trying to be a rapper, getting a rap career started. And all of that shifted once my first daughter was born, because I realized that there was a lot of responsibility. There were different things in raising a child, and I just couldn't be out there running after contracts and all the nonsense when I had to deal with, raise, travel, and all those things that it took to take care of her.
Okay. Jameco? Oh, Jameco?
I go with it. All right, so becoming a father to me was a very scary experience, because for some odd reason, we all feel like as men, we never gonna have kids for some reason, until we have one, because you just seeing yourself run around, that feeling of that is man, there's no word for it, but just becoming a father has been so amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
So as someone who isn't yet a father, but I talk to Black fathers, I realize that it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to right all the things that you felt were wrong in your own upbringing. So I look at fatherhood as your chance to give your son or daughter the life that you kind of wanted for yourself in a way.
Okay. How old were you guys when you had your first child?
When I was born, I was 20.
Reggie
I was 19.
and Jameco?
21.
Okay, so you guys were pretty young. I want to ask, what is the difference? Did either one of you all get married right away after you had your child, or when mom was pregnant?
Yes, I did.
Okay, did you?
I didn't. So I have 7 children.
Okay,
One is from when I was in college. We never got married, but maintained a friendship throughout.
okay. I'm curious. You guys were pretty young. What made you guys decide to stick around, be responsible, as opposed to say, "Hey, I'm young. Excuse me, I'm young, and I just want to have fun." What was it that I got to do? Take care of this responsibility. It's no longer about me.
Well, I mean, you look at yourself as, okay, here's, like people saying, here's another me. So you want the best for that me, that junior. I have a junior. So you want a better life for him than you probably experienced for yourself. So you go ahead, get married, you do the right thing that you feel at that time, the right thing to do, so that your kid can have be in the best situation.
Anyone else?
I want to hear you ask me that one more time. Ask me that one more time.
I hope I can remember it.
Ask me that one more time.
So, what made you decide to actually take responsibility when you were so young to take care of your children? When it would be easy. You're young. You just want to have fun. That's not something you anticipated. All your friends are out hanging out.
I think for me, it was that I had 2 fathers, but at the same time, my blood father, my father, I don't even know how to word it because I feel like they both are is equal, and I don't like to have different names for the 2 out of respect. But what made me stay was to understand the responsibility of taking care of a child, and that it does not just fall on the female to take care of the child. As a man, you're supposed to be responsible. My dad was not in the household, but he still was responsible. My stepfather was in the household, and I seen him take care of his kids that were not in our house responsibly. So by me seeing these examples, I have to follow the example. It just like it was just in my head that this is the program. This is how this goes. As a Black father, this is no matter whatever you do, that's what I felt like the program was, because I didn't see the disconnection between my parents. They all worked together, all did what they were supposed to do.
Okay, before anyone else answers, this is extremely interesting and a pivotal moment, because that right there is what dismantles the idea that Black fatherhood doesn't exist. Jameco just said he had not only 1 but 2 fathers in the household, and he saw the example that if I have a child, I got to take care of responsibility. Now, society and the narratives that you hear will tell you quite the opposite. We hear all the time that the reason why our community look a certain way, and I say that certain way being negative, is because there are no fathers in the home. But Miss Jameco, he had 2 dads in the home, and he was very young, and he just followed the footsteps. Did you get a chance to call? You were not married, so tell me what happened. Tell me what happened. Like, they got married, but why did you decide not to?
So it was a thing where that's a really good question. Trying to answer this because I know my daughter might watch this.
Now we're in therapy.
Yeah.
You're next.
It was a thing where I was more immature and not ready for marriage. And, we were in college and having fun and things of that nature. And I just was simply not mature enough to deal with that aspect of it. And so over time, I learned to be more mature and be more responsible. But immediately, I knew that I had to take care of my daughter. I had to make sure that she was fine growing up, and everything that I did from that moment forward was about her.
Okay, Dr. Ajayi. I pronounced it right.
Ajayi.
Ajayi.
Yeah.
I always screw it up.
No, you don't.
I'm sorry.
Sometimes you do it perfect.
I appreciate that. To Dr. Ajayi.
Yep.
Okay, great. So you've heard the fellas, you heard the dads that actually talk about how their experience was when they were young, just starting off. And it sounds like well, Reggie, you grew up with both parents, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the two that grew up with both parents, they followed their father's footsteps. So did you, Dwight?
I grew up with both.
Okay. So in your practice, can you tell us, do you have an idea in your practice what type of dads or who choose to shuck their responsibility and who do not, or is it just that simple?
It's not that simple.
Oh, good. Okay.
And it's, just like people say they don't feel like gay couples should be able to adopt children or have children because if you do, your kid's going to automatically be gay. And we know that's not true. Coming from a family that's broken, in a sense, doesn't mean that you're going to create another broken family. Coming from a father who's absent in your life doesn't mean you're going to be an absent father either. These things are all stereotypes, they're all myths. And that's why we're doing this podcast today to dispel some of these myths. People are people. I think everybody on this panel is an amazing father. It sounds like they had great role models, but at the end of the day, if you're going to be a good father, you're going to be a good father. It comes from your personality. If you have the personality to love something, for instance, being a pet owner, if you can show up every day for your dog and your cat, that means that you'll probably be a good parent. This idea that you can create something in the world or have something in the world and then ignore it, neglect it, forget about it, that all comes down to your personality type, is my personal opinion. So I don't think that it has to do with your upbringing as much as it does your personality, but your upbringing can create a personality within you. So it sounds like all of these gentlemen had great upbringings in terms of being good people.
So it's really based on the individual.
It's based on the individual.
Awesome. So that's something that I think is important because, again, the myth is that Black men are just not in the household. They're not taking care of the
I
children.
think that myth, because we all grew up with the Cosbys. I don't understand where the myth came from. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's fake, and I think it's rooted in racism, and I think it's designed to be divisive and tear us apart as a Black community. We really should talk about where the myth came from, who initiated the myth, and what was the intention.
Okay, so that was truly my next question, no doubt. So let's explore that. So starting with you, since you brought up, where do you think that myth came from?
I think that in the 70s and the early 80s, we started busing people across county lines. We started, creating all kinds of myths and ridicules about Black women and Black fathers as parents and in general. And I think that there was a concerted effort to utilize our votes in a way that was harmful for us. I don't want to say too much politically, but the idea that we're always going to vote Democrats, we're always going to just, am I saying too much?
You are not. In fact, you're holding back.
I know where you're coming from.
Listen, at the end of
Help
the
me out.
day,
I know you're coming from.
What he doesn't want to say, I will say.
you will say,
And I'm going to jump on that too.
okay, go
Yeah.
ahead, go ahead.
So the whole goal, when you look at the whole goal of a lot of things was, one, to have us looking at a certain party, right? So you had Lyndon B. Johnson with his great reform, And his reform was about putting social structures in the community and welfare and food stamps and everything. And this is a perfect time to look at that because now in this day and age, today we're filming, what did they just do? They cut off the SNAP benefits. And so we were dependent on another man's table. We were dependent on someone else feeding us. And that's not what our forefathers did in this country or other countries. You look at I talked to a friend of mine, his mom grew up deep down south, and she said when the Great Depression hit, we didn't even know it was a Great Depression because we continued to do what we always did. If my neighbor had eggs, you got the eggs. If I'm growing collard greens, we shared the collard greens. We were surviving as a community. But then they pushed this stuff to us, the welfare, all this and that, with the goal of saying what? One, vote Democrat, which Lyndon B. Johnson said, we're going to have those N-words voting Democrat for the next whatever amount of years, right? And then on top of that, just the loss of ingenuity and the loss of all the things that we know that we can do. And we still see the ingenuity and the invention and the creativity in pockets. But imagine if we had continued to thrive in our own neighborhoods like we used to, like in our own schools with Black teachers, because this was a major one for us. The Black teachers, when they did the whole integration thing, a lot of people think that the Black teachers were just integrated into the system. They were not. They were fired. So all of that knowledge, all of that way to all the knowledge of how to teach Black children and strategies was lost with that group of teachers because the white teachers kept the jobs and many of the Black teachers were fired during integration. So there's a lot to it. And there's so many complexities about it, but I'll stop for now so someone else can speak.
Okay, I'm probably I'm sure the oldest person on the panel. So I represent 5 generations of mindsets. So the times that y'all are talking about and talk with other people to get the knowledge, I live. So, you know, growing up, in my neighborhood, everybody was married. Everybody. There was a husband and a wife in every home. Nobody got divorced. And that's just the way it was. And so there was no myth. And I know I'm going to get ready to ruffle some feathers, but let it be. Where it came from is when I grew up, everybody knew what the man's responsibility was and that he was the head of the household. That was culture. It wasn't a discussion. It wasn't an option. It wasn't a myth who was the head of household in the 70s. Now, as we came to the 80s, you know, that changed a little bit because now, you know, everybody didn't make the right choice to get married. And I'm sure people looked at you as head of the household because you were responsible. So now you have guys that weren't responsible. So now they're creating single moms. So who's the head of the household in that situation? The single mom. That's where the myth started. So now the other people saw this and they say, let's help it along. So now for the people that weren't responsible, hey, come over here. We'll subsidize your life. But guess what? When I was growing up, you know, in the project, sort of say, you know, we go play because that was where all the fun was. And come the first of the month, everybody would clean up, get rid of all the guys' stuff out of the house because the social worker was coming by to make sure there was no man in the house. So they made sure that the father was not the head of that household because he wasn't allowed to be there. And if he was there, you got kicked out because there were laws. In order for you to get this WIC check, this subsidized housing, all of this. And guess what, guys? I've heard women teach their daughters that, hey, have your child, have your two child, get the guys to pay child support, and you can live a good life. You don't even have to work. The government's going to take care of you. So that was in the 80s. That's where it started. Now I'm gonna go one more step, then I'm gonna be quiet because I don't want to get in. I don't want y'all throwing no wood at me. But then come the 90s. Okay, that's when women's rights came in. So now when women's rights, it jumped on the bandwagon too. So I am a witness that corporate America started giving the Black women the upper hand when it came to jobs. Everybody in the household pushed their daughter to go get a college education, not their son. The son, the streets raised them. The mothers, the fathers, the grandmothers got behind the daughters and said, you're going to be one of the first in our generation to get a college education. That was in the 80s, early 90s. So when they came back with an education, and most of my friends, I'm from Florida, with drug dealers. Now you got the educated woman and the trap star. Don't work. It doesn't work. So she's looking at, I'm ready to get married. I have my career. Who's compatible out here? Nobody. So I'm gonna pass the mic on that.
Can I add one more thing to that?
I have a bunch of questions as a woman. But okay.
I just want to add one more piece to that. Because when we talk about multifaceted and we look at the way that it's all connected, what else came out in the late 80s, early 90s? Not only just crack, gangster rap.
Oh, Lord.
And that's what was used to raise our sons. So like he said, our kids were out in the streets, 80s, 90s. The boys, they were doing what? Pushing that whole NWA, gangster rap, gangs, and all of that, that was being pushed in our community. When you look at crack, what were they doing? They were filtering crack through the Crips and the Bloods throughout the U.S. That's how they spread throughout the U.S. So it is all connected. It's all connected in a sense that we want to keep them down. What are some ways that we can do it? And what are some ways that we can promote it?
So I want Jameco to respond, and then I have a question.
Well, the first time I was, to be honest, was introduced to this craziness was as a child. I was with my mother, and I heard another young lady getting put out because a guy left his shoes and clothes in the apartment, and they had to vacate. They got put out. Now, if you would visually think about that as a mother, and that would scare you from that, everybody in that same place would be like, I need to make sure if I have a guy, either I go where he is, or if he comes, he doesn't leave anything. And when you create that, all it takes is one or two people, and it just goes from there. If you start doing something to one Black community, it's going to eventually get to all of it. So when you start giving one person more than the other, let me give you an incentive for not dealing with him. Get the kids, yes, but don't keep them in the house. So when you do that, what did that do? Then your kids come up seeing that, oh, mama working, mama doing everything without him. So what do I need him for? I done heard women tell me, I don't need you. What I need you for? I say, you don't need a man. I don't need you. So, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere where somebody needs me. So how far I got to walk to find somebody that needs me?
So, okay, you're gonna say something. Go ahead.
I just want to highlight the fact that it's chaos.
Yeah.
All of this is what we call chaos.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it did start with the government and a concerted effort to destroy the Black home.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I can turn on the radio and I'll still hear Glorilla say, I don't need her. And I can still hear Megan Thee Stallion saying, I don't need this, I don't need that. City Girls made a whole career off of tearing down a Black man and his importance and value in a relationship, and at home. We are now perpetuating what we are also acknowledging was a racist, sexist, concerted effort to destroy our home. So yeah, we can point the finger across the aisle for where it started. Are we ever going to point the finger at ourselves for where it continued?
Right. Okay. So
you gotta wake up.
So
we have to wake up.
That was, I had two questions. You asked the second question. And my first question is going to sound like noise. And it's going to sound like noise because I'm a female. And we have an audience here, and I do welcome your questions. And I would like to hear your questions before we move to the next topic. But my question, particularly to Mr. Reggie and to the panel, is that it sounds like Black women supposedly was the problem that created the myth of the Black father, the negative myth of Black fatherhood, because of the education, because of the welfare system. I mean, is that what you're saying? That's one part. And then there's another part. There was a welfare program for single fathers. So what do you say about that? Because that was the same same bucket of money, if you will, that supported fathers who were unemployed, but it was part of the welfare program.
Oh, little snippet. Just one thing for me is that it all is about survival. Survival. Gotta do what you gotta do. And sometimes when things are the way how they are, and somebody you know is very powerful over your head, what can you do? You know, mothers have to do what they have to do. And if they're programmed and if things keep changing, I can't fault anyone for that. Because as men, we can stand up and say, no, let me be in charge. You don't need that.
Okay.
Because a lot of us still with the women, they still get benefits, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's about being a man and understanding what a man actually is.
Okay, I don't necessarily blame women for what happened. What I'm saying is, let me make it clear, is that society got behind women and put them where they are today. They did not do the same thing for boys and young men. We had to get it, how they say it in the street,
Out
the mud. And we got educated. We put ourselves in college. Now, there were a few men that went to college and became, but it was for all the women, that was the push. And so, you know, when the women came back educated, you know, you go in the workplace in corporate America, now you have all the women that are managers, senior managers, vice presidents, and presidents of these Fortune 500 companies in the 90s. So your Black men, what were they doing? You know, working in a warehouse, landscaping. A lot of them started their own business. You know, I was one. So, you know, that's what Black men, and I'm just speaking from experience. I didn't go to college. I got married. I started my own business. I went and got educated later. But what that did is nobody looked upon me as a young entrepreneur and said, Reggie, what do you need to be successful? They acknowledged and appreciated my courage of stepping out and taking care of my family, being an entrepreneur, but nobody rallied around me and said, hey, let's make sure that you're successful like they did my sisters.
I think I understand.
You see what I'm saying?
Even what happened during that time, there was a push for pushing women to do more. Yes. There's encouragement, support, and men didn't get it.
No. Simultaneously, the pipeline to prison started.
Absolutely.
Where they said the statistics show it, and they actually created the pipeline to prison from third grade. They could already determine if you were going to go to prison. And that is why you didn't see Black men achieving anything, because from third grade, the way they speak to us, the way they treat us in the school systems and in the communities has already determined You're not going to college, you're going to prison.
So for all intents purposes, if you told you're nothing, if you're told your future is prison, that's what you start to believe.
Absolutely.
At
And
the
the
same-
gangster rap supported
I
it.
mean, that's what the streets taught you.
And then at the same time, when you tell a little girl, you tell a little black girl, you can go to college, you're gonna be something, that's what she's gonna put you.
And you don't need a
And you don't need a man.